and there wasn't a lot of other activity, and just doing that, like, the wind is so strong, like, you could hear the flag whipping. Just like,
I know it.
it was just echoing in there, like,
Yeah. Was it pretty foggy the other morning? I noticed that, was it Cassuth, North Cassuth, was 2 hours late?
yeah, I did see that one day, yeah. North Iowa.
Oh.
Kasuth's part of that, yeah.
Yeah,
But
okay.
they're in that, yes, they were late that day. We had some, it was,
Not as severe.
no, patchy, more a little bit east. There wasn't hardly anything once you got, what they say, about a mile from town here in west. We didn't have anything. Well, relatively anything, you know what I mean?
Right.
Laurel can just sit here and tell.
Yeah, yeah.
A quick throw a pot of soup together. Then I'm watching my clock and I'm like, ooh,
Not gonna get done.
how am I gonna get done? Hey, maybe I should have my computer. I had it in the Instant Pot, so I have to.
Jamie more than likely won't be here. He was gonna be here late.
Oh, yeah.
He was coming back, and he texted me this afternoon. Their plane got delayed and is leaving late, and so he doesn't even know if he'd make it by the end anymore.
Okay.
If he would, great, but basically, probably not going to be here. He's pretty sure is probably not going to be here. He's pretty sure is probably not going to be here. Well, the stream's working.
Well, the stream is.
5:28. There we go.
Yes.
Still raining out there, huh?
Good stuff.
That's a dumb question.
All day long, it looks like.
Yeah.
The student rep, city rep, Mr. Hurst. Sounds good.
Move down and put them on the end.
Yeah, put him in the right.
Okay. Doesn't want to connect.
I did tell him 5:30, so I'm a little worried that he is not here.
Well,
It is raining.
I know who we're talking about, so.
So I don't know what's. Not connected, so let's try this.
Let's try that. I don't know the password to
Okay. Okay.
It's connected.
Sign in. Or does it just automatically?
What network do I need?
Yeah, they can't get on. Can they do guest? I don't know what the. I don't know what the.
I suppose since the last time he's been on, he's changed. Do you, there,
He's not getting on Wi-Fi. Can we call Tony?
we might have to.
It's a little wet.
Shower? Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh at you, Jennifer. You know I'm not laughing at
It's
you.
okay.
I'm
You're laughing with me.
commiserating with you.
I know.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yep.
It was a good time. Yeah, I have an umbrella.
He'll call Tony and get you directions to get on the
Hey, Tony, it's
Wi-Fi.
Casey.
Can I start your meeting?
Board members.
I think so. We'll follow this because we got enough
Struggling to get signed into Wi-Fi.
going on.
School yes, Wi-Fi network. SO staff.
That's so stop. This one? Oops.
No, not that one.
There's a.
There's another one.
Is what we're going through?
I'm like, oh, wow.
Yep.
And then
That's as far as I can get.
Okay, fun.
To sign in.
Yep, it's having them sign into the SO Staff Secure. He said, don't sign in.
Don't sign in.
Don't sign in.
Yep.
Should I just go ahead? You want me to wait a second?
Sure.
Whatever's fine.
He's working on, okay. We'll,
Okay, we'll just go ahead.
Casey will work on get this going for your Wi-Fi. I think we'll get going with this. I think we can do that based on what I have up on the screen.
Okay, I will call the meeting to order. The first item is roll call. So we'll just, Laurel,
Present.
Kristen,
Yes.
Jenny,
Here.
Craig.
Here.
Okay. The next item is the approval of the agenda. If someone would like to make a motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, the next item is election of board president.
So this is our annual meeting on election years, which would be the odd numbers years. It's the organizational meeting. This is like that, but it's done annually. We don't have any new seats, but we do have to fill the officers in the board president, position. So in looking and reading through this, if I'm not suggesting anything, just giving as an example, since Laurel served as the past year, if someone wants to make a motion and second, and that's unanimous, then we would stick with that. If it's not unanimous, then we go to what with the nominations and voting by the index cards to who gets the majority of the votes. Does that make sense? She can continue, but that has to be a unanimous motion. If that does that make sense?
As long as she's okay with it.
So is there a motion
Yes, we need a motion.
to have
Second.
Laurel continue as board president?
I make a motion to have Laurel Clausen continue as board president.
Yes, SO Staff and it connected.
Okay, there's a motion and a second.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Okay.
motion carried. So we will do the oath of office.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Can you do a different
Laurel, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of board president in the Sibley Ocheyedan Community School District as now and hereafter required by law? Okay. This is all yours.
Oh, yeah, here we go. We will need to elect a vice president. Do I have any nominations?
And that can be done the
can
same. That can be done the same way as we
Okay.
did.
So Greg-
President.
Yep, Greg has been our vice president, and if he's willing, we can do nominations or approve that way, or if that isn't unanimous, then we can. So first of all, Greg, would you be willing to stay in that? Okay, so is there a motion to approve that? Approve Greg Atherton as our vice president?
I'll make a motion to have Greg Atherton remain vice president.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is carried.
Okay. I'll do the oath of office. Okay, Greg Atherton, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Board Vice President in Sibley Ocheyedan Community School District as now and hereafter required by law?
I will.
Next, we will have the appointment of board secretary treasurer. And sorry for the
Make a
delay.
motion to appoint Kendra Reader either as school business law official to the board secretary treasurer position.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that is carried. Okay, we need to establish our meeting date, time, and location for this following year.
So yeah, obviously you guys are well aware the current date is the third Monday of the month. Time is 5:30 and the location's high school IMC, and so then that's what's in policy. We can continue that if we want that change. We can change that. It has worked well. Obviously, whatever we set, whether it's the same date or different, exceptions can be made. Like in the past when we have to move it up in April for the timeline, or if it falls on President's Day, you know, things like that, or other conflicts, we can always adjust that, but we make what would be the typically normal scheduled day each month, and so forth. So the current time obviously is the third Monday at 5:30 here in the high school IMC. Is there any interest in deviating from that?
Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
Then we might as well, if there's a motion to.
Yes.
Yep.
Is there a motion to approve that time?
I make a motion to establish the meeting date and time, and location for 2024-25 as the third Monday of the month at 5:30 at the high school IMC.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that is carried. Okay, next we have the appointment of board committees.
I said at the beginning of the meeting before it started, Jamie knew for sure he's going to be late and more than likely won't be able to make it, but he had spoken with me ahead of time. And I'm just bringing this up as we appoint this. He was good with both officer positions. He wanted me to stress, even though he didn't get a vote, and he was good with the current committees or anything that needed to be adjusted that he was on. For the past year, this is what the committees were. Finance was Jamie and Greg. Facilities was Jamie and Kristen. And then policy was Jennifer and Laurel. We can determine to change those if we need to, or we can continue those for the next year. That's really up to you guys and your level of interest with that.
Is there anybody dying to read board policy? Besides Jennifer? Okay, if not, I'll stay on that one.
Yeah, I think if nothing else, and since we didn't have any changes, it's fine with me for the
Let's
next
stay.
year
Okay,
to stay as is. So would there be a motion to keep
yeah.
basically to have the subcommittee stay as was in the past year?
I'll make a motion to have the subcommittees stay as they were in the previous year for the current, or the upcoming year.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that is passed. Official publications.
Officially, we need to do that annually, name the publications for the district, the publication for the district. Currently, in past practice, we've had the Sibley Ocheyedan Community School District use both the Ocheyedan Press News and the Osceola County Gazette Tribune as the official publications, and my recommendation would we continue to use both as the official publication for the school district.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the Ocheyedan Press and the Osceola County Gazette as previously used.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it's passed. And next, appointing legal counsel.
Annually, you're supposed to post and present and approve the legal counsel for the next board year. We use Mr. Steve Avery of Cornwall, Avery, Bjornstead, and Scott from Spencer, Iowa. He is a member of the Iowa Association of School Board Attorneys and works with IASB as necessary, and my recommendation would be to continue to utilize his legal services.
Okay, seeing that recommendation, is there a
I'll make a
motion?
motion to keep present legal counsel as stated.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that is passed. open enrollment contact.
Annually, this position is supposed to be appointed, and it's recommended to continue having the superintendent, that being myself, to serve in this capacity.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to appoint open enrollment contact as Diane DeZale.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that is passed. Appoint SO Education Foundation Board Representative.
Laurel, in her role is our current representative, and this also has to be appointed annually. The foundation board meets roughly twice a year in a formal meeting and a few things in between time to bring up money for scholarships and the classroom grants. So, however we discuss, my recommendation would be based on our discussion
Okay.
to approve that person.
Anybody wants that position, that would be fine. It's just reviewing. Some of you probably been on it before. Kristen, okay. Is there anybody who would like to? It's like twice a year meetings, and you look through the applications for foundation money, and then as a committee you make a decision on who gets that money for classroom grants.
I'm hearing they're supporting you continuing in that role.
Okay, somebody needs to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to continue to have Laura Clausen as the appointed SO Education Foundation Board Representative.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Everybody did, okay. Not hearing everybody. Opposed? Okay. That is passed. Osceola County Conference Board Member.
The conference board is comprised of the mayors from the towns within the county's region, one representative from the board of directors of each high school district, and then the members of the county board of supervisors. Their main responsibility is to review and approve the assessor's annual budget as presented. The assessor's work of establishing valuation has a direct impact, obviously, on the county, city, and schools' ability to levy taxes for their budgets. So it's 1 to 2 meetings a year. I put generally 1, but I think Greg's in the past has served on it and said sometimes they've had 2. So, yeah, my recommendation, whoever's discussed, or Greg continuing in that role.
I was doing that.
She did
I
last
was
year.
My bad.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
they wanted a female.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh. And I'm fine staying.
How
on.
was-
So you
was
wanna
it-
do it still?
I should have looked at the minutes because I just
One
copied
meeting
the
or
stuff from
I
last
won.
year.
So-
3 class.
No, I'm fine staying here.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Kristen Byer as the Osceola County Conference Board member for the upcoming next year.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that is passed. IASB Board Advocacy Representative.
ISB likes to have someone serve as this from our school on the Advocacy Rep Council. It's generally recommended to have whoever is your board president, and so it said as board president, Laurel served as this in the past year. I didn't put the name because, and you'll notice everything on here just says recommendation, or it says something from president because I didn't want to assume. So it's recommended to have the board president serve as our advocacy representative for the next year. Sometimes in the past, Kyle's gone down ahead of us, and then they have like an assembly in the morning before the ISB convention starts, and he's been on that board before and represented. That's one of their big duties, but that kind of sums up what it is. So I would recommend having Laurel, now that she's board president for the next year, to serve as our advocacy representative.
I won't be attending conference, so if somebody else wants to go to that, can they? Or do they?
They could. They'd have to go
Okay.
down early, but they would.
I think Kyle mostly went because he was on the committee.
Yep.
Okay, is there a motion?
I make a motion to appoint Laurel Clausen as our advocacy representative for IASB.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 And that is passed. appoint SiAC representative.
Hopefully I have this right, that I didn't copy this over incorrectly here, but I think Jennifer and Jamie served on the SiAC advisory committee for the past school year. Meets a minimum of once a year. I don't know if we'll meet again this year. I did do a meeting initially this year, but they dive into data and provide input. And these representatives, regardless, need to be appointed annually.
Was there a good turnout at that meeting?
It was pretty low. That's okay. We'll get that moving forward.
It's not bad, I guess. I mean, if everybody's happy, then.
Right. I would agree with that. Mr. Hertz was there, and a very few handful of other community members, very limited, right, Mr. Hertz? Yeah.
Okay. You guys okay with staying on that committee? Jamie was
Jamie
too.
was, yep.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to appoint Jennifer and Jamie as SiAC representatives for the coming year.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that is passed. Designate authorized signatures for 24-25.
This has to be done annually because you technically could have a different president or vice president each year, and they're the recommended authorized signer for our depository accounts. Since that has been done already, it would be recommended to have the president and vice president, which would be Laurel and Greg, serve as the authorized signer on our checking accounts, as well as obviously Kendra. So the recommendation is right there.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the president and vice president to the authorized signers on the district's checking accounts, as well as Kendra, school business office secretary.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
That is passed. Continue streaming monthly meetings.
So this isn't something that's necessarily required, but I like to put that on here so we have that discussion and the board continuing doing this for our regularly scheduled monthly meetings. Obviously, we don't do it for the work sessions or other things like that because community members can come, but for our regularly scheduled monthly meetings to continue streaming this on YouTube. Last year we had asked some stats about how many other schools were. I don't have anything from this fall, but as of this spring, there was still limited schools that were doing this consistently. And I mean, that is a good thing for us, right? I'm saying so, I mean, we don't have to, but I think we've had some good feedback on that. I know last year I didn't have this, so I looked this up today. In case you guys asked, I'll just say kind of what our average viewership was, right? So going back to December of last year, and I would say that the typical month would be that 50 to 60 range. You'll see that's pretty common unless there's something of interest. It doesn't mean bad, but you'll see of interest. And so some of the spikes, I'm trying to guess what it was. I don't always know what it is. So last December it was 52 views. Now you got to remember that doesn't all mean that month. In fact, there could have been 30 and maybe someone just viewed it last week because you wanted to go back and look at December. I don't know. January was 139. I wasn't exactly sure to see that one. The only thing I could think of is because of calendar and snow days, but I don't know. February was 321 views, and I'm pretty confident that was because we were having our discussion on the conference. March, the regular scheduled, and then the extra meeting was 62, and then 80 views because we had that budget hearing. April was 65 views. May was 141 views, and that was when we were voting to approve the dean. I'm just speculating there. June was 109. I don't know exactly what was in June. July was 65. August was 91. September was 110. We had discussions and approval on girls wrestling then, and then October was 64. And I might not be right on those suggestions. I was just trying to look for things maybe out of a normal board meeting. So, yeah, going back usually in that 60 range unless there's something unique.
Okay. Is there any discussion, or we can go ahead with a motion?
Make a motion to continue streaming the monthly SO school board meetings on YouTube.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that is passed. Annual financial report.
So one of the requirements of the annual organizational meeting, depending on the years, to kind of give a brief summary and overall picture of how the books ended for the previous year. It seems a little odd when that ended June, but that takes several months. We've had that discussion. So some of this I'll give an overview on, and then some of this Kendra will present on. I'm gonna hand this out. You. This is the same thing, it's just the printed copy. Typically in the past, the board members have, but it's on here as a PDF, and then it's also available now. At the end of the week, I got it on the school website under the financial info page. So I'm not gonna go through this verbatim. Overall, things are going well, and I don't think there'd be anything too shocking. If you would go to the page that has the 10-point financial condition test, there's more than 10 financial ratios and things in here, but this kind of summarizes that. This sort of compares where we were for FY23, the percentages versus FY24, and everything is still within good financial bearings or above that. You can see some of those metrics depending on what we're looking at and what it's measuring in terms of like maybe cash and unspent ratio. That's gone down some, and we're still well above averages, but that's gone down because we're in that position, right, where we're overspending our authority in a year, which we've talked about. We know our unspent authority was too high. The only way to get that to go down is when you overspend your authority. The disadvantage of that is you got to get that to stop at some time too, right? And we're aware of that. And we know at some point in the future we've had those discussions to have that stop. But that is why some of those numbers appear to be going down. If you would look at them in isolation, in and of themselves, you would say many of those look really good. But I think that would be a little bit naive not to say that the trend compared to years before that's gone down. We're still in a good position, but we just want to keep and stay aware of that, right, as those go down. An example of that, towards the end of that packet, I won't go through everything, but on one of the last pages, it's the history, the budget enrollment. So for us, it's about the second to last page. Nothing you haven't seen, but this shows just the enrollment from the budgeted enrollment, right, or certified enrollment from the last 5 years, and just the change from the year before. So in 1920, you see we went down 40, then we were basically even or up slightly, down 20, down 40, and then up 20 this year, right? And so that's one of the things as we continue to be aware of. I think that's going to eventually for us plateau and level out. We're just kind of going from a reality of, your 60 and 70 down to your averages of that 45 to 50 in a class, and that'll level out. But that does have an impact on our budget moving forward. It's kind of hard to know how to budget and what will happen in the future when you don't exactly know what your enrollment trend will be. And if we can keep that stable or close to and not such big swings, that would be very helpful. But that's something we can't control, we just have to deal with. But I wanted to point that out. And then I won't get into the specifics, but the few pages before, there's about the 3 pages before, it talks about our unspent balance ratio, the annual unspent balance, and so on. And you can see when you compare the overall, those metrics look really good, our unspent balance, but that is going down as we've talked about and we're aware of, and just we have to keep an eye on, because eventually what happens is if you don't keep an eye and look to the future, that goes down, then all of a sudden you can't stop that and we're in trouble. But if you look at the target range, we're still well above that. And even on the annual unspent balance, the same, likewise, what we're spending in a year. Why that's 102% is because we're spending more than our authority for the year, but we have that built up. And that allows us some time to make those decisions, but just something to keep an eye on. So.
The state, don't they say which ones are in trouble?
Yes.
Are there any more in trouble this year because of COVID money or not?
I would say when we went to our budget, when I say we, Kendra and I went to our budget projection model, they say it is a common theme, especially for mid-sized to smaller districts like us, that their unspent balance is going down because they were buying and spending things using ESSER funds that weren't gonna continue. And so like they pointed out, many things that we've purchased or many salaries and raises were given, which is great, you wanna give that off the back of that, but that's not sustainable. And some of the, like they said, some of the years when you got 1.5% or 2% new money, but you gave your staff, I'm not saying us specifically, but gave your staff 3 or 4%, obviously you can't keep doing that. It worked in those years because of ESSER funds, but it is a common thing that many are gonna have to make some decisions like this, and then when you factor declining enrollment in with it, it just changes the outlook. Not all schools that are making those decisions have as large of unspent balance as we do, so I'm very thankful for that. And there are a few that are on I'm gonna call it the naughty list, that were the first time we're gonna go negative last year. I think it was, we looked at was it 5? Do you remember? 4 or 5 last year, and a couple of them are off. There's a couple new ones on, and then there's one school that remained, but they were a larger district and had a plan in place, but all had to appear in front of the SBRC, which isn't fun at all. And if you don't get it rectified after, I think there's a time frame, a year or 2, then you lose control or shut down. So that is happening to others, and I'm not hinting that that's where we're at, but I'm just saying that that has happened to some other districts now in the last 2 years. Good question. Anything else? You know, there's a lot of information in here, and I kind of glossed over it and summarized it, but as always, if you see it later, ask me, but anything I can answer right now?
What are your thoughts, I'm just looking at, the general fund per pupil cost?
Yep.
On that other page there, but that's a
Yep.
pretty big shot up for,
That is, percentage-wise not huge, but it has gone up the last few years. You gotta remember, that includes beyond what we get funded per student, general fund, because it's gonna include things like what we're spending through PEPAL and SAFE, like it's all expenditures, right? So through our PEPAL, SAFE, special ed, if you have a deficit and due to some high needs kids, we're gonna continue to have that and maybe have that grow. That's factored in there as well. So when people say, well, you told me we're getting $7,800 a student, but you're spending 14, that's right. This is looking into more than that, because there's other funding streams that we have access and we spend that are designated, but that factor into that. So as a part of our discussions, yes, we would keep an eye on that as well.
oh, I was just looking at, well, 1920, it was 12,000, and now it's 15. Which seems,
I did too. I should have wrote it down. I looked percentage-wise. I at first was like, holy, that was my initial reaction. But percentage-wise, when you compare it to kind of our cost per student and income per student, it wasn't that far off. Just bigger numbers. So then I was like, okay. Anything else?
Does that take into account, I mean, when they're figuring that, does that take into account class size or not?
It's strictly just dividing your general fund expenditures by your number of students.
Okay.
Yep. Anything else I can answer? I'll let Kendra present.
If you want to click on save and PEPAL expenditures, we're not gonna really go through these.
This one?
But, yep. But this just lists out all of the expenditures we paid for out of SAVE and PEPAL. If you scroll down, PEPAL is on there too. Staff computers, roofing, concrete projects were probably big money.
Yeah, if I go up here, concrete projects.
Our bus
leases.
too was a little bit weird this year because we couldn't get buses and we had to buy out our lease, so it just looks a little weird, but because we had to purchase the lease buses that were ending and then bought new ones, so it just looks a little weird there.
So these numbers, can we look at them somewhere else?
They're on here. You
Oh,
mean-
they're on there, okay, yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
I don't know if anybody has questions quick on that one.
And one of the other big ones on the bottom is like that 330,000, that's our debt service payment for when we borrowed against revenue bonds for the band room. Obviously, eventually that will end, and then eventually, like a year from now, we'll start seeing those payments for what I've been calling the facilities improvement project with the HVAC at the elementary and the secure entrances at each building and all that comes with that. Then we would have annual payments for that or an annual total, excuse me, it's monthly payments, but an annual total for that as well.
When does the band one cease?
29.
Yeah, 29, is that right? That's what I was gonna say. Yep.
Initially, it was in 2019, and then we refinanced in 21, so, but left the same 10 years. Or didn't move it 10 years. It had the same, only over 10 years
Right.
total. If you want to click on, if there's no more questions on this, the FY24 annual report info. Some of the other ones on here give more detail of the information on here. This is just all put together. So these are the reports that I certify at the end of the year for FY24. Annual transportation report just goes through all of our expenditures and the number of students. We have to enter all the miles driven for regular routes and activities, and when somebody drives a car to a conference, that type of thing. So it figures all that out and splits it out by average cost per mile and average cost per pupil. The reason that is so much higher this year is because of those paying for those bus leases. It just looks really skewed because of that.
If you look in the last 2 years, we're within 500 miles, which in a school year, that's pretty amazing that overall miles we were within 500. But yeah, 300,000 more in a year. But what Kendra was saying is this past fiscal year is when we had the new bus leases as part of that.
Special ed supplement, this is just basic information on that. There's a lot more that goes into it, but it just shows our revenue expenditures and gives our deficit. That's what you guys approved in September, so we could get the authority back for that from the SVRC. And then the number of students served, students that are tuitioned out, our resident students that we're serving here, and then students that are coming in to our district. They're all special ed students. That's the total number that we have. And then the last part on the CAR is just the basic revenues and expenditures. That doesn't have anything to do with the authority or spending authority or our UAB. It's just the straight revenues and expenditures. I don't, if nobody has questions on that. The other special ed transportation, those kind of give more detail on them. I'm not going to go through those, but you can look at them. Just more detail on the reports that we just went over. And then the only other one is the treasurer report by fund. This just gives, from the CAR, it gives the beginning balance that we started out with in each fund, revenues, expenditures, and the ending balance in each one of the funds that we have. If anybody has questions. Fascinating information.
Numbers.
Yeah. Otherwise, that's all I have.
Are there any questions? Okay. We can adjourn this meeting. So I call for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned. And now we will go to our
A regular, yep.
meeting.
Yep. So on here, it does look a little odd, but just so you know, going into it, the call to order, anytime it's something with the president, it just says president, because
Yep,
I didn't want to be presumptuous, right? So it just says president.
okay. So I'll call the meeting to order and ask for an approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. It is passed. Next, we'll go over the 5 school board basics. We'll start with that. Put students first. Greg?
Follow the law and your own policy.
Respect the chain of command.
Base decisions on shared and objective information.
And operate in the public eye. Okay, we do not have anyone for open forum. So we will move on to approval of the consent items. Kendra did give an extra sheet of expenses here.
Mostly it was credit cards, that we got those entered, and we were billed for part of our audit that we had last week. They sent a bill for the initial part of that. If anybody has questions.
What's exotic?
I was just
feline
gonna ask the
rescue
same
center?
question.
What are we looking at?
On the back. I was like, 6 tickets to Exotic
Where
Feline
did
Rescue
the
Center.
principals and Stan go to?
That was
FFA.
FFA went on their national convention.
Women's spandex. I was like, oh, what's going on? That's all.
That is
That's a good question. I'm
That
glad you
is-
asked that.
Okay,
that is cross
thanks.
country
I'm like,
uniforms.
Okay, 'cause I'm like, okay.
Yeah, cross country uniforms. The glitter rhinestone one is dance team uniforms.
Okay.
I thought, actually, I'm glad you answered that, because we also purchased some for some, but that wouldn't have been on here, donations for the supplies closet for students in need.
Purchase some different
Oh,
pants
sure.
and stuff.
Some different pants
That
for,
was probably on the big list that was
that was,
on the
okay,
board meeting.
that was on, yeah.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have been on this, yeah, for students in need, or if they
Yeah,
come to the
that's
office
not-
for something.
That's just part of it. It's really all the top jerseys for the boys and girls, and then some of the shorts we were billed for. We haven't gotten all the shorts in for cross country.
That was for cross country.
Uh-huh. Because sometimes they put the description in that of what the item is actually called,
Yeah.
so sometimes it comes up. It looks kind of weird.
Okay. Any other questions on the consent items? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to approve these?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent items as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that is passed. And we're on to our discussion items with our literacy presentation.
So Mr. Vermeer is here this evening. He's our curriculum head for the CTE department. He's going to give a little presentation, so. You just want this up, Mr. Vermeer?
Sure. You can go to the next slide. I'm in charge of the CTE curriculum team, which is Career Technical Education. But as you can see in the list up there, it's kind of a hodgepodge mix of teachers. We have counselors, we have FACS teachers, business teachers, agricultural, industrial tech, TAG. So we really don't have curriculum that is in line with each other, but a lot of us have to deal with some unique things that are particular to CTE, which I'll talk a little bit about that here in a little bit. But because our curriculum doesn't really align, what I did is I talked to the teachers and asked them to give me kind of an idea of something unique that they're doing this year as a means to just kind of give you an update of something that's going on in their curricular area. So you can go to the next one. So at the elementary school, the counselor is implementing a new program titled the Zone of Regulation. And what that's doing is it's helping kids to learn how to deal with emotional things, dealing with other kids or even maybe with adults, but how to accept their emotion and then how to react and respond in a positive way, depending on what the situation was. One of the things that the state is trying to do is get computer science to be relevant and present in all levels. So we did have a couple, was it one or two? One. We had one elementary teacher that went to iTech again this year. Again, iTech is just simply a place where you can go and learn about how to utilize different pieces of technology in the classroom, and also to educate the kids on how to use different technology. So we're trying to infuse that through what we have now. We don't have a designated computer science class per se, but just getting the teachers to be able to utilize those techniques and skills in that area. At the middle school, we are really, the state is, I think it's the state, maybe you can answer this, but youth science is becoming a big tool to use as a means to get kids to take their future and career path serious and starting to expose them to what is out there, and what things they might be interested in and maybe good at doing. So eventually, as they leave our system, we're better preparing them for their future as opposed to leaving and not really having a clue what they're doing. So they're doing that with the counselor. In the 8th grade business class, they're learning how to do wealth management, and they're using the stock market to do that. And Mr. Johnson is utilizing competition as a means to help them really infuse and pay attention to things. So they're competing with their classmates. They're through their HECS, and whoever has the most gain on their investments basically wins. So they're, again, if you look at the history of this being something that middle schoolers would get attention on, it wasn't the case 15, 20 years ago. Whereas now it's required by the state through their curriculum, but two, I think the sooner kids can start thinking about this, the better chance we can give them to be financially successful in the future. At the high school level, I started a new class called Careers this year, and what we're doing with that is one of the things on the DCAP was that we got kind of dinged on was not infusing this through all of our grade levels, where I'm doing it in my life skills class as juniors, so they get a lot of it there. But again, just to help them identify what they might want to do in the future, but also this is a prerequisite now for school to career. So kids don't just take school to career to get out of school for 2 periods. Now they have to do something to show that they're actually wanting to go into the career that they're looking to. So I think it's beneficial in both regards, and it holds them accountable to actually do something ahead of just signing up for that class. Industrial Tech, they're getting a CNC router table that they ordered. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow kids to use current and relevant technology in the workforce and get to learn some skills in the classroom while doing that. And then again, the high school counselors also infusing and using youth science as well as a means to help kids plan for their future as they look at their schedules, but also look at college preparation after high school. And Family Consumer Science, Carly went down to the elementary school and had her students, her fashion design students, design teddy bears with preschoolers. So it brings the high school kids down to the elementary level, so it builds those relationships. But also it allowed those kids to be able to take those ideas and then actually go and create and hand sew. So putting that to application and creating something with that. And then in the agricultural department, in the egg mechanics, they got a new plasma cutting board, and they're now creating, I believe, different signs for different businesses with that. So again, they're getting current technology that's in the workplace and getting skills acquired with that through our programs, so that when they leave here, they have relevant skills to be able to put right into work when they get started there. The other thing I wanted to bring attention to is because we are different and unique, and you probably aren't aware of, actually I know you're not aware of because most people aren't aware of, the process that you have to go through in the CTE program to become verified, certified. So if you think of like math and science and English, There's all different standards that are out there that are in line with the state and federal level. For each of our programs, there are standards that are out there, but they aren't necessarily something within each state. So what we have to do is we have to take our curriculum, align them with a community college's curriculum and their standards, and then we go through this whole process to verify that what we're doing is what we're supposed to be doing. So we, every 5 years, have to go through this process. I was the mentor with Mr. McCarty, and because I'm the CTE director or CTE leader, I went with him this year to do his. And unfortunately, the last probably 5-6 years, they've changed it 3 times on what it looks like. So once you get it figured out, the state decides to do it different again the next time. So it was the topics were the same. It's just they have a web-based version now as opposed to a spreadsheet. So you can go to the next one. These are the different things you have to evaluate your program on. There's 6 different sections. The first one's just basically kind of your goals and overview of the program, which from an industrial class from one school to another school is kind of probably going to have about the same goals. Effective teaching and learning, so you have to prove what you're doing for instruction, whether that's through projects, whether it's through different presentations, and so forth. So you have to grade yourself on all these criteria. It's more of a self-reflective assessment, but it also is a piece where you have to give evidence, proof. You can't just say I'm doing this. They want to have artifacts to prove that. Student assessments is looking at what kind of assessments, so it could be like rubrics for projects, it could be tests, it could be quizzes, and so forth. Advisory council, so section 4 and 5 are one of the things they want us to do is to reach out to other businesses outside of the school district, or not, I shouldn't say district, outside of the school walls. So could be local, it could be further than that, just depends on what curricular area you're teaching. But making those partnerships and arrangements with them and communicating with them on what are you seeing, what should we be doing in our classroom to help prepare these kids better for the future working in this environment. The difficulty we have with that is because we are a smaller district and we don't have as much industry, it makes it really hard to make those relationships. And the ones we do have might be for multiple different CTE areas, and we kind of toe the line of how much do we use them and how much don't we use them, because we don't want to burn that relationship out. So it kind of makes that relatively difficult. And the last one, section 6, depending on the curricular area, is looking at making sure that the things that we are teaching, so for example in the egg shop or the industrial tech shop, teaching them training practices to make sure that they're safe. And not only teaching the kids to do that, but are we actually making sure those things are happening in our own building, and then what processes do we have if something does happen to make sure that we are taking care of it appropriately. So it's not just we pick a curriculum and teach it. There's a lot more work. In fact, I went down with Mr. McCarty. We were gone 3 days, I believe, for sure, and then we actually ended up working another afternoon to get this all done. So it is pretty substantial. And there's a process where we fill it out, we send it to one group, they evaluate it. If they don't see that there's something right, they send it back to us. Then they go to a next step, which I think is the AEA, and then the AEA, if they okay it, they go on to the state level. So it is quite a process. One thing I mentioned last year, and now we're in it this year, is the state is requiring us to have CTSOs for all of our curricular areas, not just, so we've had FFA with ag over the years. We are now required for each of our curricular areas to have our own, which from a theory standpoint is great because it gives more kids opportunity to participate in things. The unfortunate thing in a smaller school district is we're fighting for the same students. And a lot of our students, every school has a certain percentage of students that don't get involved in anything, so they're automatically out. And then you have a pool of kids that are, and in smaller districts, they're involved in everything. And it's just a matter of being able to have enough time to be able to, utilize each of those people. But we are required to have that chosen by March of this year. And I believe Carly with Family Consumer Science has chosen hers. I'm still debating between a few, and I think Mr. McCarty's doing the same thing. But by the end of this year, we'll choose that depending on what is chosen and what the school district decides to do with that determines if there's extra money that has to be required with that and so forth. Right now, unfortunately, they're not funding any of this pressure. They're just making us do it. So, yeah, we'll see where it goes. Beyond that, is there any questions you have for me?
We align with NCC, I'm guessing.
Well, so like that was an issue that came up with Mr. McCarty, is we used to align with their carpentry program, but they dropped their carpentry program. So once that happens, now we have to look who else does. And they're pretty much relatively the same from school to school. It's just a matter of getting all the paperwork signed and having all those proofs of evidence that is there. But like for me with business, that'd be fine. I believe ag would probably still have that same program there. Family consumer science, that's becoming a thing. Not that it's not important, but a lot of colleges don't have that.
And it
So
needs to be a community college or 4-year?
I think it has to be an accredited
Accredited
organization.
community college.
Usually that's a community college, but like with family consumer science, it might turn into, I don't know, it might be a school in another state that they might have to resort to. I don't know. And I would vouch for, there's been talks of cutting the AEA and cutting their funding. For that standpoint, we would be up a creek without a paddle if they weren't there to help us with that. It takes us 4 days with their assistance. It's going to be substantially more if we don't have that. So if you have the opportunity to say something to the state level about that, there's a lot of things that the AEA does that doesn't get seen. And I think that once they get taken away, a lot of people are going to be shocked at what they did do.
A lot of hoops and compliance with the CTE.
Just in CTE alone.
Yeah, and then you throw in, special ed alone is a monster that they help with in regards to paperwork and things like that. So, that's all I got.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
2-minute board policy, finance moment.
So we had a lot of other discussions and presentations and things tonight, so I wanted to keep this short, so I just kept it local. I had this in here last year, but we do have a board policy on yours as board members, training and talking about high achieving boards working as a team to create expectations for all students. Learning is fundamental to creating the solid governance structure focused on student learning for school boards. The board may participate in conferences sponsored by the education associations and agencies in addition to its own in-service programs. And then it talks specifically about the board working closely with the Iowa Association of School Boards and encourages our board members to participate in qualifying learning opportunities to achieve these annual board awards. And as such, I wanted to point out this year when we go to convention here later this week, we will be recognize Sibley Ochedenwell, and I'm just kind of stating this now for public that talks about, but we will get, and I don't have history going back since the beginning of time with this or anything like that, but in the last 15 years from what I can tell that we haven't received before the Team Achievement Award, which we'll be receiving. So that means at a minimum, the superintendent has to achieve the minimum award, but also the majority of the board does as well, which we will have. So we'll get that recognition, and Sibley Ocheiden will be recognized, and then we'll could talk about it again next month. But when we go down to convention, we will be recognized. So bravo to the board for the work that they put in to learn and become better governors of our district. So I really didn't have any other trivia or anything like that, but just to make that aware in our own policy. Yeah, no trick questions. So any comments that you guys have on that?
I'm really glad that our board has made that a priority, and I think we've really benefited from it too.
Yeah, and there's some boards that don't, and
That's
there's
good.
some that
Yeah.
do. When we go to our AAA meetings, Northwest AAA, some of the times we meet in Lamar's, and that's one of their goals. I think they've achieved that goal.
They've gotten it a lot, haven't
18 straight years or something. That's like when they have new board members, the superintendent told me that's one of the first thing the other board members say is you need to be aware of, like, this is our priority to educate ourselves and do this each year. So buckle up for the next 17
Here
years.
we go, people. All right. We'll move on to our administrative reports.
All right.
Right, yeah, so like I said in my report, it's hard to believe that we're almost at Thanksgiving break already. It seems to go faster and faster every year, but a lot of things to celebrate over the last month and even look forward to here before we kind of get to our holiday season. So highlighted a few things. Our parent-teacher conferences from October 28 and 29 were mentioned last month just a little bit. We were anticipating them. Those have been successfully completed. I don't have hard and fast numbers on those, but in having conversations, I do know that our attendance was up. We really tried to set a goal of we set a goal of trying to reach 100% in some way, shape, or form. And while, like I said in here, we didn't reach the 100%, but we did increase our attendance. So we have a couple of other ideas that we can kind of that we're kind of throwing around at the BLT and the staff level to possibly make conferences go a little bit smoother and provide some opportunities for families, and possibly even some volunteer hours for some of our secondary students that we're kind of throwing around. But yeah, so just some things to possibly make that process a little bit more smooth. Wanted to say just a quick thanks to the SOEA, the Education Association, for providing a meal on one of our nights. I know staff greatly appreciated that as well. So one of the other things that we had over the last month was our coin drive fundraiser. I was blown away at the amount of support that we have to bring in our author here next week, Monday. I know there's a lot of excitement to bring Kevin Lovegreen in, and his reading frenzies, he calls his assemblies, and the opportunity for him to get into the classrooms. So good job to our kids and families there, and able to take some of that excess even and purchase some books for our classroom sets and some of those kind of things. And just really looking forward to that. And then was able to take the kindness of the Jensen family and hand out books to all of our second graders. I attached a letter that kind of explained the donation and the gift from the Jensen family that we took advantage of here at SO. Pretty static, but the Mr. Jensen was a coach for Caitlin Clark at one of her travel teams. And so wanted students at Iowa to know her story of perseverance and work ethic and some of those kind of things. It's actually a really good book. I was able to snag a copy for my desk as well, and so it's a neat book. It's a very appropriately leveled book as well. So comes from a perspective of a little girl in Iowa, and Grandpa is telling her, let me tell you about the story about this girl that I once knew. And so, yeah, hopefully a way for them to connect and see what it takes to be successful and what has made her successful. And hopefully that can generalize to other students as well. So made mention of our High Five Fridays that we continue to implement at the elementary school. We've had multiple groups, from marching generals to a Vera Health group to Osceola Regional Health, to a staff High Five Thursday we did when we had our parent-teacher conferences. I think that was really cool. I think the kids really appreciated that. We don't often get that opportunity to connect with the kids that way. It's oftentimes very much business, but it was a cool way for the kids to see on that short week of our appreciation for them and vice versa. So PD has been included in here. You guys can read that. Been a lot of focus on our math curriculum and review for purchase here moving forward. And then the staff attendance through November 15 and our PD attendance that hasn't been reported on previously. So a lot of stuff, but kind of business as usual too. So.
I would add to Mr. Dezay, he doesn't know this, we were in I don't remember what we were meet on, I went over there and he's finishing a meeting with a student, and so I was sitting in his office and I saw this book on his desk. So I opened it, so I did read the book because I got started, and then I realized it was on Caitlin Clark, and it's a good kid's book.
Yeah, it is a very good kid's book. So that's what I mean by appropriately written, and yeah, it was cool. It was really cool. Our kids were really excited. Mrs. Lodi, our librarian, really headed that up, so a lot of credit to her and Mrs. Peters through the elementary library for organizing and distributing and some of those kind of things, as I mentioned in my report. But she's a huge Caitlin Clark fan, so she's like, our pictures were the best. We have these posters and signed basketballs and some of those kind of things. So it really kind of brought some of that stuff to life for the kiddos as well. So it was really cool. It was fun.
So how many coins would we have to collect to get Caitlin Clark?
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe a few.
With the way she's kind of reeling them in now. Yeah.
But have to do that all year.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
A couple of years. So.
Okay,
Yeah.
Casey.
Awesome. Wrapping up our fall sports and starting with our winter seasons. The fall musical just finished. Awesome show. If you didn't get a chance to see it, I'm telling a lot of people just perfectly cast. The group of kids that we had just fit those roles really well. So Mrs. Lee and Mrs. Ryder, Mrs. Francis Ryder did a great job preparing the kids, and they had an awesome performance on Friday. I heard Saturday went really well too, so kudos to them. Fall cleanup was a success. A little bit of a rainy day. We did November 9th, I think was the date. But more volunteers than last year. Had about 40 volunteers. About 20 of those were kids. 24 jobs. We completed more projects despite the weather. So just happy about how that turned out, and great opportunity for kids to get some community service hours they need for graduation. Veterans Day program went really well. Big thank you to Tristan Bramer and Lori Kreinbrink and our FFA students. They do a lot of work to get that set up, organizing, who's talking, the different ceremonies that go along with that program. So a lot of work goes into that, and it went really well. For PD, we continue to focus on MTSS, so staff are working on that within their individual professional development plan goals, and then math curriculum has been a huge part of that time for that staff, and then just also the time that they're putting in adjusting to new roles, teaching new grade levels or new subject areas. So we're going to do an EL training with all staff on Wednesday, just different strategies to help support our English language students throughout the district. So excited about that. For BLT, we've been talking about a lot of different things, so kind of rehashing some of the schedule changes we've made, looking at how that's impacting learning and class time and achievement and all those things. Reached out to some of our local principals just to see kind of what they're doing with their schedules, mostly focused around our change with success, moving it to the middle of the day, requiring it for all students. That's pretty consistent, having a home room built into some part of the day. Kind of seeing other districts doing end of the day, that's the most popular option, but there are a few doing it kind of between random class periods. One district between second and third hour. They just throw in a homeroom, like 25-minute time frame between two class periods. Another group had it similar to us, kind of between fourth and fifth, but theirs wasn't opposite of lunch like ours is. So kind of looking at what other options are out there and trying to adjust that so it's the right fit for us. So, parent-teacher outreach. So part of the Success program is a requirement that we put out there to have teachers or students contact their parents on a regular basis. And we've had some good feedback on an approach kind of developed by some staff members where students are emailing their parents current grades and some things that they like about school and what's going well, and some things they wish they could change or things that they want to improve on. So we got some positive feedback on that, and I think that's going to be something we continue. The more communication we have between teachers, students, and parents, I think the better it is for our learning here. So with the changes we made, I just thought it'd be interesting to look at some numbers kind of year to date from 2023 and now into the school year 2024. So at the high school in 2023, at this point we had 120 Fs and 63 students having an F currently. That was in 23, and now in 24 we've kind of cut that in half. So every year these numbers fluctuate based on students and class workloads and different things, but just happy to see that those numbers are heading in the right direction. Attendance for the high school is better than last year, so excited about that. And our number of office referrals is about half. So, I'm not saying that's all due to changes, but I think the relationships with success teachers, I think that's helping just overall positive interactions. And I think we're kind of seeing that trickle into other aspects, or at least that's what I'm seeing from the data. Maybe I'm just seeing what I want to see, though. At the middle school level, pretty consistent number-wise with what we had last year. Not much change in office referral, not much change in attendance. F's, the numbers aren't a fair comparison. Last year's data, I just had 7-8 because that's the group I was pulling for. With the change in roles, now I'm kind of pulling data for 5-8. So the numbers are higher, but it's also including 2 more grade levels. So I think across the board that's been pretty consistent. So some things to be excited about at the high school, but definitely in both buildings, high school and middle schools, definitely some things we want to keep working on. So, and at the bottom there, staff attendance and professional development staff attendance.
How is the new schedule working for teachers and students?
I think good. Some of the feedback we've gotten, especially at the high school, is concerns over some lost instructional time. So anytime you make some changes, increasing the PD time on Wednesdays and then requiring success, ended up adding taking away about 11 minutes of class time throughout the course of a week. So not a ton of time, but that adds up over the course of a year. So concerns about that. So we're looking at some options. The BLT's continuing to discuss that, and I have some plans that we're going to consider and look at for this BLT agenda. Well, December BLT agenda, it's on there to kind of look at different options that we could go to. One of those being maybe not having success on Wednesdays to try to give that class time back. And that's a practice that's pretty consistent in our district or in our conference. Schools that have Wednesday PD early outs, they don't have their homeroom on those days. So that's a way we could have some class time back. But overall, I think good. It seems like we made a lot of changes, but really we required success, put that in the middle of the day, and went to 2 lunch shifts. Otherwise, classes are pretty much the same. So still about 45-minute class periods, meeting every day, 5 days a week. That's all pretty consistent. So overall, I think positives, but some things we can clean up.
Do you think next year they're going to still require everyone to take success again?
That's in the discussion. I think yes, especially and Matt kind of mentioned it when he was talking about the DCAP, and I'll present that to the board here in the spring, early spring. But part of that is a requirement that we're teaching and addressing college and career readiness to every grade level in the high school. And so that's the time that we've kind of chosen to cover that. So we're doing that on Tuesdays for grades 9 through 12. So for that, we need to offer that to seniors too. And really important stuff for them to be looking at because they're, a few months away from those decisions, whether they're going to go to school or go to work or go to a 2-year. Yeah, so. But that is something out there that we're looking at too.
Thank you, Mr. Hertz.
Yep.
Mr. Tisdale.
So yeah, I'll try and summarize things and not repeat if we've discussed it later here. But PD wise, these guys, excuse me, and the staff have dug into this more. But even in our admin meetings, just a lot of discussions on our math curriculum and where that's going and how that's, when we were talking about our school performance profile and how we scored and how we can pick a curriculum that'll continue to move us forward in line with that, right? And what's going to be best. So a lot of discussions with that. I've spent a fair amount of time of digging in and looking at our school performance profile and overall the positives we mentioned it briefly at our work session that have come from that, and obviously things that we can improve in. We're all very happy with that, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. I put the link on here, but we have another discussion item on that, so I'll wait till we get there. Spent a fair amount of time looking at our ISAP scores, even though we had them at the beginning of the year, now when they've been compiled by grade and what that means and by building, and used that data for SIAC and our work session, and spent a fair amount of time with that, just using that information to try and help us moving forward and making those decisions that are best aligned to that. And indirectly that comes back to, Mr. Hertz using that, for some of our school performance profiles for things like the success period and offering the CT options and the career readiness options, and that all plays into that. So with staff retention and engagement, I've initially started with very basic stuff with the SOEA on negotiations and costing and just where things are at the legislature, and it's not that we've moved forward, but good conversations with them and so forth, and have met. Both principals have referenced meeting with the BLT and then sometimes taking those ideas and trying to implement them when possible at our admin meetings. And so that's been good to get that feedback. We've had several community organizations provide different items to our staff at different times. The SOEA purchased a meal at one of the nights for parent-teacher conferences. We've had other businesses. Who was it today for the CFE, thank you. The CFE today had treats in the lounges for the teachers, things like that worked out and reached out with and have been providing things. So I'm very appreciative of that. And there's a lot of things like that we've been spending time on, and both principals and Julie Schuler as well. Communications with our staff to keep updated, and we'll talk about this at the end, but just trying to keep them updated and hedge off when you hear different things that are untrue, but you know how the rumors go with that in terms of conference mediation and everything with that. And then, admin we provided pizza one night for conferences as well. So, and then for the financial stability and viability, spent a fair amount of time, and then Kendra really has in the past week in finishing our line item budget for the year. So I want to thank her for taking the time to do that. Our financial projections, we'll talk more about in the next month, that we've worked on through ISFIS. The CFPM is the Comprehensive Financial Projection Model. Education world of acronyms again, but that's what that stands for. Early retirement, as we've approved, and then just going through staff questions and discussions on that, and helping those that have come out with questions or filling out paperwork or whatever that may be. The financial report for tonight that we've presented, spent a fair amount of time on that and changes in how that impacts our projections and things moving forward. And then one of the things you'll see coming out, we had previously approved and gave me permission to work with ISB for a long-range needs assessment, and I've worked on that on and off with ISB, and we'll probably be sending that out the first week of December here. That's Monday the 2nd, because I believe Sunday's the 1st, right? So Monday the 2nd, and then we'll send that out, and then eventually have that data back and presented to you as a board, and use that to establish some of our district goals, tying in with what we did at our work session as well, and some of the data that we're seeing there. So just trying to pull all those pieces together, as we talked about at the beginning of the year, to get some of those goals in place, but some of the times other things consume your time, so you're just trying to manage and get that all to fit together, but we'll get there. So that kind of just summarizes everything so far. Questions on any of that? All right.
Okay, moving on.
Did not meet necessarily specific in the last month on anything, so I don't have anything to add there.
Okay, recognition of excellence.
So one of our senior student council members, Alan Mejia, messaged me, wasn't able to make it. We were planning on him, but wasn't able to make it tonight. So I will read for him. Lots to be excited about. So we'll start with state cross country. Congratulations to Amadelaide Benitez. She finished 49th. Kale Ryder, 52nd. And congrats to Ben Byers, finished 7th, top 15 finisher and medalist at the state cross country meet. So lots to be excited about there. The 2024 All-State Chorus, Wyatt Cry, has been accepted into the All-State Chorus and will perform in Ames on Saturday, November 23rd. The 2024 Opus Honor Choir, we had two young ladies make it, Ella Howard and Kara Schaefer. They were selected to perform, and that will also be in Ames on Thursday, November 21st. We had David Poppin make it for the 2024 Honor Band. Son of Dennis and Michelle Poppin was accepted into the Northwest Iowa Bandmasters High School Honor Band after auditions on November 9th. And he will perform at the Honor Band concert in January in Sioux City. We had a big group inducted into the NHS, National Honor Society, and I'll read those names. Aiden Byer, Dawson Byer, Alex Bosma, Ben Byers, Hadley Creighton, Kyler Elser, Eric Klein-Waltrink, Wyatt Cry, Dawson Krakis, Tate Marco, Jackie Ochoa, Jackson Pedley, Reagan Rushi, Grace Seiler, Marshall Skipoff, Gavin Stanton, Tiffany Torres, Carter Voss, and Becca Wobler. So a big group, and that was last week they had induction. So congrats to those students. And the October Generals of the Week on 10-4, the elementary, Finn Thomas, middle school, Addison McDyer, high school, Elizabeth Palmer, and staff, Stacy Loneman. On October 11th, Ashton Block, Paisley Krakis, Gabe Vandyhoof, and for staff, Barb Williamson and Michael Anderson. On the 18th, for elementary, Joey Tenaple, for middle school, Francisco Mejia, for high school, Michelle Acosta Portillo, and for staff, Jamie Clausen. And on the 29th, for elementary, Laven Santiago. Laven, is that correct?
Yep.
Witten Julius, for middle school, Brenna Lortz, high school, Maxine Alokoa, and for staff, Ryan Wiersma.
Thank you. IASB.
Yeah, most years, more often than not, when we have our November board meeting, and looking back, it's after convention, and then we usually give a summary report. So I left it on here. So yes, we are planning, just as a saying this so the public's aware, and we said this, but we're planning on attending. We have 4 board members and myself that'll be leaving Wednesday, coming back Thursday night. So yeah, we can't report or say what was our favorite piece of that, because it hasn't happened yet, and so forth. And usually, more often than not, most years this board meeting's right after that. But just making people aware, and I'm excited to go. I think there'll be some good conversations, and like I said earlier, there's a couple opportunities, but more than likely on Wednesday afternoon is when we'll take our photo and get our board award and recognition for that. So.
And you're presenting.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I guess, and presented, yes. We are. No, that'll be good. Yeah, Sibley Uchin, we're presenting. Each board member has to give a 10-minute. So, no, I'm just kidding.
You have a lot of them cancel
They're sick now.
No, the board members will be there, and we're presenting on the superintendent evaluation and just the process we went through with myself being new, and how we align that, because that's a pretty common thing, and some of the changes and everything that we're going through that, and the work we did with IASB, when I say we, everyone involved here. And so from that, they asked us to present. So I'm excited that Sibley Uchin will kind of be out front and present that.
Got your presentation ready to go?
Yep, we do. I didn't have a choice because I had to have it done by Friday to turn into them. So yes, we got it ready.
Will you be live streaming that?
No,
We could go on Facebook.
I do think they do.
They do, some of them, don't they?
Yes, they do. No, I think it is. I've just never watched it, but they do stream it on something,
They do
whether
stream
that's
them. Yeah.
Twitter or Facebook. I'm not sure. Now
Because
that
I
you
think
say
you
that.
can go back and watch some
Yes,
of them.
you are. I forgot about
They're
that.
always good sessions.
So,
Okay. Consider approval of SBRC applications.
school performance profile for.
Oh, whoops.
No,
Okay,
no
let's back it
problem.
up here. School performance profile.
So I asked the principals with their duties to stay through this point, and then any additional comments they can make and so forth. So we kind of talked about this a little bit at our work session. I didn't know that this would be out then yet or not, and it happened to be released at that point. The the short 10,000-foot view of this, if someone hadn't looked at this or viewed this or is hearing about this tonight, overall good things happening, and we have a lot to be proud of, and I want to start at the ground level and thank our teachers and staff for that. But overall, very good things to see. Those middle columns there where it says comprehensive status and targeted status, when it says met, that is what you want to see in those columns, ideally, right? And it doesn't mean the end of the world if we don't, but it ideally says that. And then where it says ESSA support year, and we have no support required, that's another good sign. And it doesn't mean you're not going to performance profile jail if it said something different or anything. It just means we have things to work on. What that does mean is we have a lot of good things happening. We can thank our staff because we haven't scored low enough that they think we need additional support. We don't have any subgroups that are scoring significantly different than the rest of the state or our general student population as well, and so forth. Our elementary school, now, the scores are different by building, so you can't look at and say, for instance, the high school is at 580 and go, oh wow, they're just blowing away the other two, because there's different metrics. That's not necessarily how it goes, and that's on a different scale. Okay, so don't think 580 is better than 511 just because of the different buildings. High schools are scored differently than the elementary and middle school, so I wanted to point that out. So the elementary high performing has done really well, and not that they haven't done well in the last few years, but is on the up with that as well. The middle school, below the 3, but still acceptable, and probably just a few scores and points here and there, and they're probably actually at the level above too, so they're right there, and a lot to be proud of. And then at the high school level, the commendable score, that was great. One of the things that's different at the high school level that there's more emphasis on compared to the other two levels is, and if I'm going to pull just the high school up, attendance, proficiency, all that's a part of it, like we talk about in the other schools as well. But a big component of the high school one, I guess would be the easiest way to say this, is talking about things that aren't necessarily scored on a test in terms of math proficiency or growth or science or English. It's talking about that career and college post-secondary readiness. And so we've talked about that in different ways and things, doing things like during success, having 1 day a week, scoring that they're talking about those post-secondary options in your DCAP, that those type of things are scored on here, not directly, but indirectly. And I think that's going to become a bigger factor in the future on this. If I had to predict, is what we do in our DCAP, I think will become a part of this. I really do, or it'll be a bigger discussion. The post-secondary readiness index right now, that is just rating the percentage of our students that are taking at some point a dual enrolled course or a college or a course for college credit, right? Dual enrolled, and you can see we're right at the state average. The bottom line is talking about students that are getting a work-based learning experience in high school, and you can see that's where we're low, and one of the things holding our scores back. I do think we'll be able to address this, and Mr. Hertz has done the work on this already next year, that without having to do anything different, simply by coding some classes, things we're already doing, and in building on those things we're doing well and coding that correctly, that we'll be able to raise that score. I really do feel that. So that's kind of the 10,000 foot view. I wanted to bring it up if there were things to discuss, like it said that, hey, targeted, and you know, right now would be the time to explain, okay, why are we targeted? Because you'll see that with some schools. Oh, it's because our EL population scored significantly lower in the middle school, or the special ed population scored lower at the elementary, or pick your poison, but we don't have that. We don't have any supports needed right now. So like I said, I just want to reiterate, commend our staff and thank them for that. So kind of overall, that's a real big 10,000 foot view of that, but what we've talked about the other night and just tonight already, do you guys have any questions with that?
So I think it looks good.
Did you guys have anything to add, just a snippet that I missed? I don't know that I did, but I didn't know if you two had anything to add.
Not really. I mean, the elementary and the middle school are graded on, or not graded, but they use a 700-point scale, and the high school uses a 900-point scale. Yeah, pretty typical metrics that they're comparing schools by. Our high stakes tests continue to matter a lot for what the state sees. I continue to enforce that it's a one-time snapshot that helps us see the entire picture, but it doesn't necessarily show the entire picture. So while we're very proud of that, all of these scores, it's still a snapshot.
Yeah, I would just add, I agree, proud of what students and staff have achieved. Definitely things to be proud of, and just keep working at it.
Other questions? I don't have any.
Okay, we'll
You
move
guys
on
good?
to new business then. Consider approval of SBRC applications.
So the school budget review committee, SBRC, right, they're the ones that authorize and approve spending authority. Kendra mentioned this earlier. We approved it in September, I believe, not October, but September, when you overspend on, like, for instance, special ed, that we can get that authority back, okay? After we certify our enrollment, there's additional things. So this is direct from their website. There's 3 things at this time of year that, once the certified enrollment is done, that we can get supplemental support for. And those 3 things, you know, if you have increased enrollment, which we do this year, we didn't the last few, any open enrollment out that was open enrolled out students that weren't on the prior year's count, so that you can have on-time funding for those. And then any limited English proficient, or the LEPs, right, your EL learners programs, that the students are in that beyond 5 years, because they only wait for 5 years, right? And so they generate that. So because of that, we have 2 things. So in order to get that authority, the numbers generated, we have to present it at a board meeting for your approval, and then we submit that and we get that. So for this year, we have not had this in several years. This first one, the increased enrollment one of significance, we haven't had this. Our administration were authorized to submit a request to the SBRC to get it's called a modified supplemental amount, but $160,000, now it's not cash, but of spending authority back. So we've been talking about, that's what our issue is, right? We're overspending our authority on a year by year, and we have to control that. But because of the increased enrollment, it's called on-time funding, we want to be able to have the authority to spend for those students that are here while they're sitting here. So when your enrollment goes up by an amount, we can get that. So we would qualify for $160,433 in new spending authority for this current FY25 fiscal year. And we get that because of our enrollment account exceeding the enrollment for the prior year. Any questions, I can answer that, and if not, then there's the recommendation, the motion.
I make a motion to approve the increased enrollment application to the CBRC, the modified supplement amount of $160,000 and 433.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is passed. LEP instruction beyond 5 years?
Yeah, so the second thing, because we did have a change of students that were not on the previous count, open enrolled out, that are now. But however, since our number of enrolled students was greater than that, you can't double claim both, so that's why we don't get that second one. The third one is for our limited English proficiency students, those that are beyond 5 years, based on where they're at, and that qualifies us for an additional $13,147 in unspent authority.
Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the LEP instruction beyond 5 years application to the SBRC for a supplemental amount of $13,147.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that is approved. Consider approval of sharing agreement for soccer.
obviously we're continue to be interested because we could not do the program on our own right now with Sheldon for boys and girls soccer. And as part of the agreement, that has to be updated annually. And so this is for the current school year, upcoming season, the 2025 season, because it's a spring sport. And it is attached there, and it's recommended to approve the agreement. I can bring it up if you got
No
it.
real changes from last year?
There are not, no.
Because last year we had to pay for an assistant coach or something?
Yeah,
Correct.
we've always done that.
It says that in here.
And everything's in Sheldon still, right?
Yep. Colors are orange and black.
It's on
They bill us for
13, thank you. Yep.
girls and boys assistant coach.
Correct. Yeah, they provide that, for lack of a better word, provide the head and the assistant, whoever's filling it, and then like Kendra said, they bill us for the assistants.
And then sometimes we share, they bill us a little bit for some, I think, entry fees or
Yeah.
something, or equipment. It's usually very little.
The uniforms and equipments, yeah, that's why it's a little, because we pay for 25% of it and they pay for 75. I think that's what you're referring to, right,
Yeah.
Kendra?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, I'll ask for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the sharing agreement for soccer with Sheldon.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is passed. Approval of new contracts.
The only new one would be Brian Block, volunteer wrestling. Not that he's going to be up there every day, but he's hoping to be up there a few days a week and just help kind of as needed. So
Okay,
we have to approve before you.
approve it. Okay. Ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve Ryan Block as volunteer wrestling coach.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is passed. Consider approval of payments to SiteLogic.
Yeah, this has been on their monthly for their design services and other fees. Hoping to have the procurement for bids for the different parts of the project in January or February. That's their kind of timeline now. Hopefully by the end of December have the actual plans and everything wrapped up, and then kind of go out to the different vendors, and then hopefully their goal is to get the bids for that January and February, and asking them with that they're very confident on that timeline, and getting the work done for, it won't all get done, but the work they need to get started for this summer and everything. So that's kind of the rough timeline of where things are at right now.
Any questions on that? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the payments to SiteLogic for services in our elementary, middle school, high school facilities for the improvement projects.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is passed. Discuss the Siouxland Conference.
So kind of an update, I think that it's out there, obviously, and I've communicated this with you, the board, but it's out there publicly too. So we've had a number of apps to the Siouxland Conference from last spring to this summer. I think technically 6 total, the 5 Lake schools, and Western Christian is number 6. Spirit Lake, after they were denied, took us to mediation, and the recommendation, which isn't binding from the mediator, was to let them into the conference basically effective immediately, meaning the next school year. So doesn't mean that'll be the recommendation, but more than likely they'll follow the recommendation if that would go in front of the Director Snow, the Director of Education in the state. That's the next level. So as part of that, we are right now looking at having a meeting to see what other schools' interests are, if they're seriously interested in joining the conference or not. That's coming up later on here, and then based on that, we'll have a discussion as a conference on what that looks like and try and pick the path best forward for the conference. No set idea of what that'll look like. Do I think all 6 will say yes? I don't know. My gut tells me probably not, but it could be. I know I've been told a number of things already that people know how it's divided and who's in and out. I kind of find that humorous because we don't know who's in and out. That hasn't been determined yet. So if you hear that it's set up and who's in and out, that'd be merely speculation because no one said that officially yet, because I don't even know that. I know some schools might have a different preference of another conference over the Siouxland, but we're going to at least have that conversation with them. The hope is, since the mediation didn't necessarily go the way that we were hoping, as kind of has been stated, in having these conversations, since we know that we're forced to make one decision, can we kind of take some control back and make decisions as a conference and give the schools opportunities to make decisions within that. So that's kind of the rough frame of the overall projection of where things are at. I didn't know if you guys had any comments or questions about that or anything I can answer as we go into that with any guidance or concerns or
So after
whatever.
the mediator recommended that, is there for sure another step after that to go above it? Or not necessarily?
Yeah, so the mediator makes that recommendation, but it's not binding.
Right.
Then the step after that is to appear before the director. We don't have a definitive answer on whether, if we just agree and accept it or work with on it, whether that has to happen or not. Which I think that's what you're asking, right? Whether, as of right now, we know we have to appear before the director for that decision. We're trying to find out, hey, if we accept this but work with them on that, do we necessarily have to appear in front of them?
Is there a time frame for?
We have not been given that answer yet. The time frame, this is where there's confusion as well. They said within 45 days, so I think I had sent out an email just to update staff and included you guys in on it. From past conversations, it's usually at the 45th day or after before they ruled, and that put it on, I think, if I remember right, December 19. Will it happen then? Is it going to happen ahead of time? I don't fully know yet. We haven't had that full conversation. There was an initial date that had floated out this week, Thursday, in the afternoon. What are we doing on Thursday? We're on a convention.
Thursday?
Right. So I'm hoping that will not be accurate or gets changed, but we haven't heard officially yet. So that was the initial date that got proposed from the state. So that just happened too, but I don't know if they'll be able to change that. I don't know why they wouldn't, because that's not gonna work for a lot of schools.
Right. Not with the conference.
I mean, we can't even say, oh yeah, we won't go to this. I mean, I guess if they wanted to force that, some schools could, but we can't do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to be busy Thursday afternoon.
Yeah.
Because like we said earlier, we're presenting in one of the sessions. So I would think that would be moved. When will that get moved? Will they give us more time if we show them that we're having conversations with the other schools, including Spirit Lake, obviously, right? We hope so, but we haven't been given a response yet.
What is the average size of the other conferences in the state?
Oh, I don't know that. If nothing would change and they were all in, it'd be one of the
Biggest?
larger and biggest ones. Yes, it would be. Obviously, some of the things we currently do, we couldn't keep doing for some of the sports of playing everyone twice, or even in some of the sports, seeing everyone once, depending on the sport, right? You know, if we get up to 16 teams, if you saw everyone once, that's 15, and it was just on one night, that's 15 dates, right? So like, as an example, in volleyball, we don't see 2 teams on a night, we see one, so it's us and Sheldon, right? And then and we see each conference school, us and then West Lyon, and then Central Lyon. Well, if we continue that and we were a 16-team conference, we couldn't even do that. You know what I mean? So there obviously have to be some changes, and that's just that sport. Now, and I'm not even suggesting that, I'm just pointing that out.
Right.
Like, whatever is picked, there's going to be logistical issues to solve. And I'm not saying all 6 will get in or even want to. I'm just giving that as an example.
Yeah.
That there'll be
Just in my mind,
challenges.
those if two go in though, what are the other four gonna do? They're gonna be in the worst place ever, so.
Correct.
They're gonna wanna go someplace.
Unless they have some,
I was gonna say,
yeah.
yeah, are there some other ones looking at other conferences?
There- From what we've been told, yes. Do I officially
Like
know
that maybe are closer to wherever that,
to where they are?
Yeah.
I would say so. I'm just saying this off the top of my head, looking at a map, looking
Yeah.
at geography. I don't know where else Spencer and Storm Lake are gonna look at.
So would they have to just kind of be free agents and see what they can?
So, I mean,
look at?
I think they'll have interest in the Siouxland. I'm just saying, like,
Right.
you look where they're at. What other, and that's what Greg was gonna, what other
Right.
choices do they have? And I'm bringing them up because they're in the lakes, because really once, I mean, if the whole argument was the lakes wasn't really viable at 5, well, if you take Spirit Lake out of there, they're at 4. I don't know that 4 is viable either, right? Let me find this here. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Nope, it is. So this is, I was just playing with this the other day, just as an example to kind of show. Can I get this on a screen here? Yep. So it just says Siouxland at the top, so I'm linking that out. So I just put in, this is the beds number, and that's the number you use for classifications in the different sports each year, right? And then it's always based on your enrollment from the year before at grades 9, 10, and 11, right? So I just put the Siouxland schools in here with the 5 lakes and Western. I put them in parentheses just because they're not part of the lakes or anything. And so, yeah, you can see you got Storm Lake 581, 545. Okay, that's Storm Lake and Spencer. And that's what I mean. You see those 2 schools on the map out there, like, who else are they? Yeah, they're huge. The conferences around them are smaller than ours. Like, there's just, yeah. And I'm not advocating for them, I'm just stating that, right? I mean, when you eliminate the lakes, I don't know what other options they'll have without some special thought there. So, yeah, you can see it goes down, including Cherokee and Esterville, 282, 277, and then Sheldon on down through us and Boyden Hall. The reason I colored it like that is just kind of visually for myself and looking at this too. And I did this for myself. This isn't shared with anyone, just when I was thinking through this the other day, and if you guys asked the question, but I just put the red that kind of is the top half and the bottom half, just so you can kind of visually see where the split. I'm not saying that's what it'll end up with. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying strictly from a numbers standpoint what that looks like. We know there's going to be changes, and I said this in the email, and we've said this privately in our conference too. Regardless of what happens, there's no one option where for everyone in the Siouxland that say that that's their preference and it works better for them. Whatever happens for someone, it's probably not as good a deal as it was before. That's the unfortunate thing about this, and why we were trying to stick together as 10. It's going to look different, but
And what is
we don't have a
their-
choice right now.
What is their main reason?
because 5 isn't,
Just because of their small conference and
What is the Spirits Lake
Main
reason, or
reason
the
for
or the
wanting to go.
mediators?
Spirit Lakes.
That's, I think they think that's not viable, and they think this is a better fit competitively for them, and it's been their goal to get in here. That's, I know this is a live stream, so they can watch that, but I don't think they would disagree with that. I don't think that's too controversial.
right.
That's what they want. What is the mediators' reasonings for the ruling? I don't know.
Just because they're in close proximity to,
Well, and I've been asked that too. How's this different than
Well, that's still
Western 3 years ago, when they didn't rule in their favor, but they did for Spirit Lake? What's different? I don't know. Because right now they don't give the reasons, they just give their recommendation.
right,
So they didn't list the reason, I mean, they sit the things, they list the things they consider, but they didn't say why they made that choice. So we don't know. I think we'd all like to know what's different. And I'm not trying to be cold. I get their challenges when you got a 5-team conference,
that
right?
part
I do
get,
get
but-
that. And some are like, this is better for kids overall. It might be better for a group of kids. I can't say it's better for all kids overall. You can't tell me some of the schools still in the Siouxland right now. And when you bring if all these teams come in, that would say in the end result, oh, that was better for us. I have a hard time saying that. I don't know that it was better. It's better for all, but that choice is out of our hands right now. So hopefully by having some communication, maybe we can control the next step. That's the idea. Because if we don't, we appeal and the director decides to add them, our understanding, we're still waiting for finding, is then that's binding for 4 years, meaning they're in and technically no one's out. And I'm not saying anyone wants to leave, but that limits options, right? Hopefully we can still maintain that flexibility. So we are hoping, I don't know when the date for the next round of legal, it's not mediation, but whatever, we don't know that. We are hoping, I gotta pull my calendar up here so I know my dates. That last Thursday of the month, which is the 26th. Yeah, thank you. Usually the conference, the superintendents, we meet on the 4th Thursday. And so right now we have thrown a letter out just to have a conversation on that Thursday between the Siouxland and then those that have applied. We didn't ask them if the date worked. We're just saying that's what we're meeting.
So you're thinking that
I'm hoping
you're
the
wanting
media doesn't pick up on
them
this in
to
the
all
meeting.
show up too?
Hopefully. And just to gauge, that's how hopefully you find their interest. And then see what our next steps are based on their interest. Someone might say, yeah, we have, I don't know, but some of them might say we have no desire anymore based on the new realities, and maybe they will all say they want to, or in between. I don't know. Hopefully we can find out more that day. The only thing I know is we know one that really wants in, and the mediator ruled in their favor is Spirit Lake, right? We don't necessarily 100% know publicly what the other 5 opinions would be. And I think this is something too, regardless what comes back as a recommendation, if the conference is reorganized, and I'm using that word because it's going to be in some shape, whether it's just adding 1 team or adding 3, whatever, 6 reorganized, I think that's something each school is going to have to decide if they're okay with and if they want to continue, right? I mean, like I said, it doesn't, whatever's picked, it's not going to be the best option for every school.
Right.
Some might say, hey, I liked the old way we did it better, right? But unfortunately, we can't make that decision. If in some way we have to do different divisions or leagues, whatever you want to call it, no matter how you divide it, it's probably someone that's going to say, I don't like how that's divided.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You
Can't
know what I
make
mean?
everybody happy.
Right. And that's regardless if you do it by size or, you know, because there's always,
Location, size.
yeah, location or just a rivalry or relationships from before that you don't want, right, to be paired together. That is different for one school compared to another. So that's what I mean. There's not going to be a great solution that everyone goes, yeah, this is our preference. There's some schools that are going to be like, this isn't really what we were looking for. That doesn't mean they're going to be unhappy and throw fits, but I think regardless of what comes up, everyone's going to have to kind of make their decision on if they feel that's best for them. And that's what I mean, maintain our flexibility, that hopefully if this is where we're going, then the schools have a say in whether they want to continue in that format or not. Does that make sense? So yeah, like that's why I put it as discussion. There's nothing to vote on because I don't have anything to present, but I'm just trying to lay it on the table, some of the things we'll have to look at, and I think at some point I will have to come back with something to recommend or present. I don't know what that will be. I could speculate, and I'm probably going to be wrong. I have no idea. I really don't.
So say they all get in, say they all want in, they all get in, and it sits like that, let's say. And they're like, okay, this is gonna be Siouxland Conference, and then say they divide it out into whatever groups or
Yep.
whatever. Does each school, can they look at the layout before they agree, like, yeah, this is the change we want? Or is it once it's said and you join, then what's decided is you have to go with that?
I am hoping,
You know what I mean?
I
Like maybe they're like,
100%.
oh yeah, we
Doesn't
gotta
go
go all
to the
this and
director.
that. Okay.
I'm hoping that by having, not only myself, I think the other schools included, are hoping that if we can have this communication and set this up, that's what we mean by taking control back.
Sure.
That then we can make that choice, because we don't want it to be that they come in, the director makes a recommendation and then you're tied into it,
Yeah.
and it's something that you didn't really sign up for or want.
Right.
So we're hoping we can make a choice or recommendation and then come back, is this what we're interested in? Because there could be people on there that go, no, that's not what we're interested in. We didn't want that, which I think you're getting at, and I don't want to speculate, but I think
You know, that's
that'd
what I'm
be
getting
fair
at,
for
like,
us,
if it's
yeah.
something that's gonna happen and mediator and whatever happens, and say more schools join, is it signed on the dotted line and that's what you're gonna get? Or can people at schools look at, these are your options now, this
Yeah.
is what it's gonna look like if we add all these schools, is this really what you wanna do?
Right.
for
I'll
your
make a
school?
scenario up that I
You
know
know?
won't happen. That'll be ridiculous, but I think answer your question. So let's say we figure out and we divide it up and we determine that the best way forward is for Storm Lake, Spencer, MOC, Sioux Center, and Sibley to be in the same division. I know that won't end up, so I'm saying it
Right.
ridiculous because they're the four biggest and
Right.
we're the second smallest.
Right.
Hopefully by taking some control when that happens and we can go, you know what, that doesn't work for us, as an example. And I'm not hinting anything, I'm just saying, I know that won't be the final solution, so I'm making something up.
Right, right.
But then that's what you're getting at. We can
Yeah.
look at and go,
Yeah, that's not what
that's
we
not
wanna
best for us.
do for our school, our students, our athletes.
Right.
Right, okay.
That's, in my mind, that's the goal. I think what everyone's trying to get to. I think they're trying to be careful in wording it that way because you don't want to
Sure.
say something ahead of time and get
Right,
someone else
right.
mad or be forced into something that you don't really want a part of, which is what we're trying to avoid. What we're also trying to get some guidance on, and we haven't gotten a lot yet from the state, unfortunately. But yeah, it's a difficult situation. We're trying to make choices that are best for us. We're disappointed in it. I do wonder, I mean, if I wanted to be completely objective, I do get where some of those schools in Spirit Lake are coming from. For myself, I don't like that, right? But I do see why they're sitting at, there's limited options for them. Doesn't mean I like it, but I can at least understand if I was in their shoes what they're doing.
Right.
Okay, moving
Because I
forward.
know, like a basketball, I did some games for some lake schools, and they're playing non-conference games on off dates because the schools can't play on
play.
Tuesday and Friday because they already got games.
Yep.
Right,
Right.
So,
kind of a scheduling nightmare,
yeah.
really.
You know, and like one of the things we brought up, hopefully to get some control, I'll just stick with the basketball example because it makes it easy. In a 10-team conference, means you play 9 schools, right? We play them all twice for 18 dates, and you're allowed max 21. You can appeal for 22. So we have 3 non-conference dates, right? When you add an 11th school as an example, if you stick with that format and play them all twice, now you're playing 10 other schools. That's 20 dates. You have 1 non-conference. Well, for us, with our size, those 3 non-conference dates are valuable, I think, right? With who we select to play and just
Right.
in terms of their size.
Right.
And now you're taking that flexibility and that autonomy to decide what to do away, right? You know, and it'd be likewise in wrestling. The only difference is with the double duels, we don't tie up quite as much of our schedule with that. It still affects it, do you know what I mean? But it doesn't tie up such a big bulk of it, because like in basketball, you're talking like 18 out of your 21 dates is your conference schedule. In wrestling, I'm just using that because that's the seasons we're going into. In wrestling, it's, you know, if we have 4, with adding Spirit Lake, how that'd work out, conference dates, that's taking 4 or 5 of our 15 allotted dates before sectionals. So it doesn't chew up as much of it, but it has an effect on it, right? Other questions or concerns?
Lots to think about.
Yeah, and
Lots
yeah,
of
like I said,
decisions that are
individually,
made, so,
if you got questions
yeah.
or come in, shoot them to me, please.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to additional items. Next meetings are listed there.
Yes, so in December, we'll meet on the 16th. That's the third Monday of the month there, like we talked about, January the 20th. The only one we're not going to decide tonight, but I'm just putting it on your radar, we'll talk about it at the December meeting, but is the February date. The 17th is the third scheduled Monday, but that's when we are traditionally off for President's Day and a day off for Kendra and I, and not that that's the end of the world, we'd have to change some things, but that's something to keep in mind. Last year, when we moved it back a week, that was the same date as the first round of boys district basketball. I'm just pointing this out. This year with the rollback, the first day of boys district and I'm doing this from memory here, so if I'm off, I apologize, but the first day of boys district basketball is actually that Monday the 17th, if I remember right.
Is it?
Right, isn't that what I said? I just said this the other day, me and Kendra were talking about it. It's like a week different now this year, if I remember right from looking
Yeah,
at
I
the
think the
calendar.
last week of regular schedule is.
Is the 10th, right? Yes. And last year that was a week earlier. You know what I mean? So when we were to move it back, we were moving into that week of districts, whereas we won't this year. Just saying that we're on the first night of districts now if we don't change it. So just something to keep in mind. We'll talk about it in December. So, and then yeah, convention this week, Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay. A lot going on. Talking points?
Take notes this time? On talking points?
I was waiting for you.
I thought the presentation was really,
Yeah.
really good, Mr. Premier.
The projections because of the
Yeah.
ISAPs.
Yeah.
Yep,
So good work for
performance
the
profile.
Yeah.
students and staff.
Absolutely.
Those were mine too.
Yeah, good scores. I liked Mr.
Yep.
Premier's presentation, and
Yep.
yeah, like both Mr. Hertz and Mr. DeZale said, it's the most of the score comes from one test in one day, but yet overall, we'll take the pat on the back from that for our staff. So
Our financial report looks good.
yeah,
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. We are adjourned.
you ready?